There's Rich.
This meeting is being recorded.
I will certainly do that, Chair. Thank you. Okay, Member Carson,
Carson present.
Member Cowan,
Here.
Member Landsberg,
Here.
Member
Yeah.
Sandy,
Here.
okay, then all members are present today.
Jim doesn't
And our
get
clerk
called.
is visible.
What's that?
And our clerk is visible.
You don't call Jim's name?
I'm just an alternate.
Okay.
Oh, you
Supervisor-
are.
Well, we can note that Supervisor Prevents is present as well.
Nice things
Oh,
were
okay.
said. Nice things were said about you and LAFCO today, though, Jim. I should pass that on to you.
Somebody said something nice about me?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I forget his last name. Do you remember, Wade? It was Bill.
Yeah.
He's been out there forever.
Oh, Bill Dendy.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Yep.
said you've been a very good representative. He's been glad to work with you.
Well, that's nice. That's very
I
nice.
immediately argued with him, but other than
Of
that,
course
that
you
was-
did.
We wanted to know what you made off of that comment.
All right, we have before us the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Alan moves to approve the agenda.
Okay,
Carson will
second?
second.
all right, Callan moves, Carson seconds. Clerk, please call the roll.
Member Carson,
Carson, aye.
Member Cowan,
Aye.
Member Landsberg,
Aye.
Members Sandy.
Aye,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you.
Hey, Julie, I'm sorry to interject. Gerardo's waiting in the waiting room.
Yeah,
He's
I
going back-
promoted him to panelist, but he has to say yes to the message that pops up saying he wants to be promoted.
All right,
So I've done it
I'll let him
twice
know.
now. I'll try it again and he just needs to say yes.
Okay. I'll let him
Council,
know.
Council, you should advise him to say yes.
I will advise him accordingly. 3 years into Zoom, but we'll figure it out soon here.
There's only so much we could do, Phil. All right.
I think
Next
that worked.
up,
Here he is.
My
Next-
apology. I've been on the whole time. I promise. These technical glitches, I couldn't get on. I could hear you and see you, but you couldn't see me.
I've
well,
had that
then
happen.
you'll know we had sufficient time to make fun of you, so we're glad you're here now.
Thank you.
All right. Public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Yolo Animal Services Planning Agency on subjects relating to the committee's business and not otherwise on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Do we have any speakers today?
We do, Chair. Give me 1 second here. I gotta fix this
Oh,
time.
okay.
I have it for 3, so let me fix the time. Okay, so let me allow her to, actually, we have a few speakers. So we'll start with Evelyn Dale.
Okay. Thank you, Evelyn. Welcome.
Can you hear me now?
We can, Evelyn.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is interesting. I don't need to have the screen that large. So anyway, I'm member of the public and I live in the unincorporated area. Jim Provenza is my representative. But I wanted to say once again to this agency that first and foremost, I'm very impressed with the good work that Stephanie Amato and her shelter staff are doing, as well as Friends of Yolo County Animal Services, given the worn out animal shelter that they have to deal with. And I'm sure you understand that this shelter is just about half a century old. It has only it has kennels for the dogs that have no place for them to go outside, so they have to stay within the same space. And it's very difficult. They have to do their, business in the same area, which is difficult for them. And it's also difficult for staff to deal with. I'm sure the members of this JPA have been to the animal shelter, and you are familiar with this situation. The cats are also in a similar situation with small cages and limited opportunities for socialization. So I'm really hoping that this JPA is going to move forward. It's been in place for quite a while, and I'm looking to see some positive movement forward in getting a new, up-to-date, state-of-the-art animal shelter. Need to be moving forward instead of just treading water. I am concerned about the lack of progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Next speaker. Clerk?
Hold on one second.
Okay,
Next speaker is Leah Rosenberg.
Leah, good morning. Good afternoon. Leah?
Okay, starting over.
There you go.
I'm Leah Rosenberg. I am also in Jim Provenza's district. I have been on this quest to get the new shelter for many years now. And I'm glad to see that we have a good turnout today and that hopefully we can get the ball rolling again. I know that the shelter is badly needed to be in a new place, and I support all the hard work that Jennifer, that Stephanie has been doing, and I'm here to support her and the new shelter and do whatever it takes to raise money to get this ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Next speaker.
Okay, next speaker is Lisa Gaines.
Lisa? Lisa? Ms. Gates, could you hear me?
Hello, folks. Just for the moment, I think that they accidentally put me as the unmute rather than Lisa. So I have unmute on my screen. So I think you meant to give it to Lisa. Hello?
Is this Eileen?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Is
And now I'm
this
unmuted.
Eileen or Lisa now? It's Lisa,
This is
right?
Lisa. Gary, it's Lisa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. I apologize.
Thanks to all of you. I obviously reiterate everything everybody else said. I also want to make sure, I know that we're coming up to a time that the cities have some changes coming up and there's going to be new faces on this board. And that really concerns me, just because I also feel like we take one step forward and 3 steps back. I think it would be really helpful if we could talk about the most effective way to make sure that we educate those members that are coming on. I am, having been involved in this since the JPA was formed, I'm more than happy to put any time necessary into individual meetings to help educate folks on what we're trying to do, at least for winters. But I also just think that our plan for moving forward needs to have some more milestones, actionable milestones. I feel like we don't have enough deliverables to get us where we need to go. Having been involved with this for a while, I'd certainly appreciate any input that all of the members that are currently on the board have. And I'm quite frustrated about where we are and the amount of time it's taken. So I realize it's a public entity and it does take time, but I'd really appreciate a conversation about what the expectations are that are currently part of the JPA, what your expectation is on what's going to happen in the next 6 months. I mean, what do you see? Thanks for giving me the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, Eileen, is Eileen up next?
We gotta let Eileen speak. Participants. Let me take, okay. Oh, did you just, no, she's sending it in. Okay, we have Eileen now ready to speak.
Okay, thank you. Eileen?
Sorry, Chair. We'll go to Myra Vega.
Ms. Vega?
So we lost.
Myra's trying to get on
yeah.
as a panelist, Chair.
Oh, she is?
Yeah. She can get her admitted as a
Yes.
panelist, please.
Yeah. Chair
As well
Sandy,
as
I'm
Ken
sorry.
Hyatt.
Yes.
Myra, go ahead.
There are no additional hands raised. Looks like we lost the other speaker. Oh, there she is. Sorry.
You're muted, Myra.
I guess, should I be speaking now? This is Eileen.
Yes, sorry, Ms. Samet.
Okay. All right. Hi, this is Eileen Sammons, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Yeah, I want to also agree. I agree with all the comments made earlier, and I totally support that, Stephanie's been doing a great job and her staff and the Friends of Yolo County Animal Shelter. But again, it's like the shelter's condition and aged facilities is not, we need a new shelter or updating what we have at least. Most importantly, we need a full-time veterinarian at the shelter. I mean, I've read the report, which there will be the next item. I'll have more comments about that, but just basically we need spay and neuter services now, because the problem is multiplying every day of the number of kittens being born and puppies, and this is for domestic pets as well, because the shelter is not able to offer low-cost spaying and neutering. So problem is growing daily, and I'm a volunteer for Yolo SPCA. I do trap, neuter, release for feral cats, and I can tell you that problem is multiplying now again, because we don't have access to spay and neuter services like we did before. So, and SAC SPCA can no longer subsidize and provide those services like they used to in the past. They're on overload. So I am begging you guys that we've got to get some kind of process going here, and there is the mobile unit that Amanda Hartman has for spays and neuters, is waiting to hear from the county about the infrastructure needed to set that mobile unit up at the county shelter, which was supposed to be where we're headed with that. So they need electricity, sewer, and water. And the question is, what is the status of that? But we've got to get some kind of spay and neuter services going for not only the public, for domestic animals, but also for the ferals. Otherwise, the problem is continuing to explode. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Is Myra next?
I just wanted to make sure my audio was working. I was on the
It is.
wrong. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Apologize.
Okay, no worries. Anyone else?
Yes, Chair, we have Bob Shabert.
Okay, Bob?
Oh, I think we might have trouble with this one because he's using an older version of Zoom. Hold on one second.
Well, I have the new version of Zoom and I had all kinds of problems coming on.
Okay, Chair, it looks like Mr. Shepard is using an older version of Zoom. So in order for him to speak, we would need to promote him as a panelist. So please let me know if that's what you want us to do or not.
Yes, please.
Okay,
And then you'll remove them.
yes, that's correct.
Okay, please do. There he is. Hi, Bob.
You need to unmute yourself, Mr. Shepherd.
Recording.
Can you folks hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Oh,
sir.
perfect. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for being on this project. Before attending law school many years ago, years before that, I was a member of the sheriff's office. And back in the 70s, actually July 1st, 1975, I joined the sheriff's department. Our animal shelter was antiquated back then. And we are in such dire need of getting something that's updated. Yolo County, I love this county. I moved over here when I joined the sheriff's office. I've stayed. I love this county. We're the premier county, in my personal humble opinion, and we need to take our animal shelter to the 21st century. Anything I can do to assist, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to give a hand. You've got a great manager at the animal shelter. Stephanie is just one in a million, extremely knowledgeable, and we've got the foundation to build from. We just need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. There's another speaker, Julie.
I have no additional hands raised, Chair.
All right, then we'll close out public comment and move to item 6, or rather to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar or any item anybody would like to pull off? Please, is there a motion?
I'm happy to move the consent calendar. This is Carson.
Thank you, Dan.
Cowan, second.
All right, moved by Carson, seconded by Cowan. Clerk, please call the roll.
On my video. Okay, Chair. Member Carson,
Carson, aye.
Member Cowan,
Aye.
Member Landsberg,
Aye.
Member Sandy.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to our regular agenda, which is initially to receive a presentation on an analysis of the agreement between Yolo County and the UC Davis Caret Shelter Medicine Program. John, will you take that for us, please?
Unmute myself. There we go. Yes, thank you, Chair. Clerk, if we could get my PowerPoint presentation up for this item.
Is that in the packet?
Yes,
John?
it's in the packet.
Okay, hold on just one second.
Really appreciate all the nice comments about Stephanie and the work she does. Lucky to have her.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. We'll get there. We will.
Thank you.
And if you could head down to the, should actually be before that page. Oh yeah, past the contract. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so this has been a long-term item that's been requested, an analysis of the service we're receiving from the UC Davis Caret Shelter Medicine Program as far as their services that they provide at the shelter for veterinary and animal health technician services. If you go to the next slide, next page. So a brief history of how we've provided for animal services and our relationship with UC Davis and the county. So this breaks down the broad strokes. We began contracting with UC Davis back in November of 2004. They provided veterinary services directly to the county. And this agreement essentially maintained all the way through until January 2020. Prior to January 2020, the county provided its own technicians to assist with veterinary services. And we funded those positions all the way through fiscal year 2019. Beginning with fiscal year 2020, and specifically in January 2020, the UC Davis began to provide both a veterinarian and veterinary technicians. We called them registered veterinary technicians. The term that UC Davis uses for what they provide are animal health technicians, just in case you might see both terms utilized interchangeably. And this contract was a 2-year contract. It began in July 2019 and ran through June of 2021. And then a new 2-year contract was approved in July of 2021 and is running through June of this upcoming year. Next page. So here's the expenditure history under the contract agreements to date. As you can see in fiscal year 2020, since we only were getting full services, the total contracted amount for that year was a bit lower than current years at $321,000. And UC Davis billed us close to $300,000. Now we only receive bills for hours that are worked at the shelter. So we are billed for hours where the veterinarian or the health technician is on site at our facility in Woodland and is providing services. So for that year, they billed most of the contracted amount, close to $300,000. And going into 2021, that maintained as well, all the way through what was essentially the peak of COVID. They were providing consistent services very close to the contracted total. Beginning with the most recent fiscal year, this past fiscal year 2022, we contracted for a slightly higher amount, expecting some cost increases, but the amount of hours we're receiving fell precipitously, leading to a significant underbilling on the contracted amount. We budgeted for $483,000 and we're only billed a little under $380,000, leaving a $100,000 remainder on that contract. And based on billings this year to date, I only have billings for the first few months of this year so far, but if the pace of billing continues, I expect an even greater shortfall this year. Next page, please. And here are the hour comparisons for the most recent fiscal years where we have full data. So you can see in 2021, when we were billing very close to the contracted amount, we were getting close to 7,000 hours from the animal health technicians and close to 3,000 hours in veterinary services. Both of those from 2021 to 2022 fell about 700 hours for a combined loss of 1,410 hours less in fiscal year 2022 than what we received in 2021. So significant change, almost 17% drop in the number of hours year to year. Next page, please. Now, this has had a significant impact on the amount of surgeries we performed. So going back to 2019, which is both the last full fiscal year without COVID and the last full fiscal year that we provided our own veterinary technicians, we were doing close to 2,000 spay and neuters. When this says shelter surgeries, that's specifically referring to spay and neuter procedures. Beginning with COVID in fiscal year 2020, we did see a drop, and it's possible that the fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 are both attributable to COVID. But we can see that even as we've come out of COVID, the numbers have not recovered, even though they're up slightly from fiscal year 21. We're nowhere near our pre-COVID numbers, and presumably that 1,400-hour shortfall is having a significant impact on our ability to perform surgeries and get the throughput we need. Next page, please. And it's not a lack of demand at the shelter. This is data for shelter intake through this year, monthly through September. And as you can see, there are hundreds of animals. Some, 1 month in May, over 350 animals at the shelter being taken in. And this has been consistently high across the year. And next page. Shelter populations have been growing across the year as well. This is data through the end of September. You can see huge spikes, especially, thankfully, we have a robust foster program, but obviously that's been reaching its limit as well. And more animals are coming through the shelter, and this is admittedly a nationwide problem. Every shelter everywhere is seeing this uptick in number of animals. But we've been getting less services while we're seeing higher demand than ever. And next page, please. And I do want to, what this highlights really quickly, so 3 items that I want to take away. So looking at June, July, and August, there's an item called spay neuter. What that refers to is specifically like we would give traps to local community members. This was mentioned by one of our public commenters as well. We give traps to the local community members and they bring trapped cats in for us to spay and neuter. You can see how that brown bar was fairly sizable in the first few months of the year, but by June, July, and August, it's gone down to almost nothing. It's because we didn't have the throughput to deal with that, to keep providing that service. And I do want to highlight, though, one other item I do want to highlight here is that euthanasia and death in care have remained pretty consistent. So I do think we should applaud the shelter staff. They've been doing a great job with their limited resources and the limited support they've been receiving to make sure that we aren't overly utilizing euthanasia to deal with these crowding problems we're seeing. And go ahead and go to the next page. And that concludes my rough overview of the current environment, the current population situation at the shelter, and the services we're receiving from UC Davis and how those are falling short of the high demand we have. And if anyone has any questions for me or wants me to expand on anything, please let me know.
Questions?
The chair.
Who said that?
Callan.
Wade?
Yes, it is. Callan here.
Go ahead.
Could you tell us what percentage of the billing reflects on-site care versus remote work? I believe we were told in the past that some of the work that they provided was done remotely. Is that still the case? And if so, what percentage of the money we're spending is being spent on remote services?
As far as I'm aware, the hours I've been provided are all related to on-site. Stephanie, do you have any information about remote services we might be providing at this time?
Yes, on their log sheets, they have to log that. So I think, I don't know if you have those as well, John. That would require us to go pretty much line by line to figure that piece out. But they do administrative work remotely, and I do not know as far as their commitment offsite with the vet school. I know that they do sometimes do rounds and things like that. That is scheduled into their schedules. So I'm not quite sure with the percentage. That would be something that I think, John, you and I would need to dive deeper into their timesheets, their log sheets.
Okay.
Yeah, I just to expand on that, I don't believe the work logs necessarily state where they performed the work they were performing. It typically just lists the work they did. So I'm looking at some of their work logs now, and I don't think they actually break that down in their work logs. That may be something we need to talk to them about breaking down. There have been some limitations in the data reporting we received. So for instance, they do sometimes provide relief vets. I was told that they didn't believe relief vets needed to provide work logs, which is not the language in the contract. They've since corrected for that, but I don't have work logs for relief vets prior to the last couple months, for instance, because they weren't producing them. So, yeah, there's some shortfalls in the data that we have from UC Davis.
Yeah, my concern is the dollars we're spending. We're spending a lot of money here, and it's obvious from all the commenters that, you know, we're not providing adequate service, and obviously from the graphs and stuff you provided, we're way down for 3 months in a row there, as you said, on spay and neuter, and it's like, where's all this money going? If we're spending it on remote work or just their time back at UC Davis, then where's the benefit for us? We one of the big concerns here is we don't have a vet there to provide the services at the site, on a consistent, regular basis. So, for $500,000 a year, I think we'd have somebody there all day, every day, personally. But that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Thanks, Wade. Jim and then Dan.
Well, I think Dan had his hand up first.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Sure. Let me just first follow up on Wade's interesting question. I mean, our managers there, are you seeing their staff on site, with a strong regular presence?
Stephanie?
There, so yes, most of the time. So I mean, they're scheduled, posted time for us. But again, it is something that, I don't, you can see my office space. So this is pretty much where I am. We're in different buildings, but there are times they are not here. And we do have to transport to the vet school. So I am in agreement as well as far as the time that the shelter is open to the public, especially, that we need to have on-site vets here, vet staff here. So that is, staggering lunches doesn't always happen. They're later in surgery. Those occasional things do happen, but as far as having the presence here, so we don't have to transport, officers don't have to take time to do that, is what needs to be remedied.
So, okay. So also perhaps related to this, perhaps not. We're all living through the great resignation at our various public agencies and private agencies, and education agencies are all struggling with the same thing. Do we have a sense, could part of the reduction in the hours be the their inability to staff up at their end for the positions that are authorized? Or do we know right now if all of their positions that do this work are filled?
They have had turnover within their team. So as far as skill level, that did impact surgeries for a while. And so they did just hire someone else, but they're at different skill levels. So they're animal health technician, if it's not a licensed person. So it has internally changed. I do think I think they might have one more position open if I'm correct. But it is one of those, there is a nationwide shortage of veterinarians and RVTs, but within their group, as far as the vet staff, we also don't have a dedicated shelter veterinarian. We used to have a surgery veterinarian and a shelter veterinarian, and that is split at this point.
Okay.
That decision was made, that was on UC Davis made that decision.
Is there any sort of regular and ongoing consultation or coordination process that's going on between our managers of the animal shelter and the UC Davis folks? In other words, what are your mechanisms for tracking and understanding and working together?
A complex relationship, but as far as daily operations, we work on population management with them, scheduling surgery. So there is a lot of communication that way. As far as the outcomes and the needs of the animals, there's a lot of communication that way. There is real limited communication on their staffing ends, and that is just based on the current contract as well, as far as what they will provide. Their hours they set are not determined by me, but those discussions have been brought up in the past, and this is just where we're at this point. So moving forward, of course, if they have more staff on their end, and also they had different sets of regulations during COVID, and UC Davis has different testing requirements and things that we don't have. So a lot of that is incorporated in their schedules that I don't have anything to do with. So,
I mean, it's sounding, and tell me if I've got this wrong, because I may be misinterpreting. It sounds like obviously there's a lot of day-to-day communication about dealing with particular tasks, but to run something like this effectively, often it's helpful to have meetings to confer on looking for trends, looking for, talking through management and logistical issues, thinking about strategies. I'm not hearing that, but am I misunderstanding?
There's definitely, it has happened, I would say probably not as frequently as it needs to be. So definitely room for growth on, an improvement for both of us, both ends of it, just with the day-to-day. So, my supervising ASO who's assigned to the shelter, unfortunately, yes, there should be more meetings and we did that in the past, but with the current population of dogs, especially right now, my shelter supervisor is responsible for leading cleaning. So unfortunately, that's where it is. So historically, we would meet as a management team and work on population management and long-term trends as far as bringing back the spay neuter, the TNR, being able to fit those in with low-cost spay neuter as well. But that is all, it is pretty minimal at this point, just based on the sheer population that we have right now.
Okay, thank you for your answers.
Thank you, Dan. Jim?
Well, thank you. What I'm concerned about is really the shelter surgeries performed, the decline. It's a decline of at least 500. And when those surgeries aren't performed, I think you could probably multiply that by 3 or 4. So 1,500 animals that can then reproduce. It has created a population explosion, particularly with cats right now. So the situation has become much worse, and it seems directly related to the hours that are worked by UC Davis veterinarians. And one of the things that bothers me a little bit, and you could tell me if there's a good reason for this, but the contract itself provides that UC Davis will decide when the UCD vets are scheduled to work at the shelter, and that the technicians report solely to UC Davis. So UC Davis is in charge, essentially, in the scheduling of vets and the vet technicians, and it puts us kind of in a subservient role, a very expensive subservient role. So I'm wondering whether we would be better off hiring a full-time vet and then continuing the relationship with UC Davis for, say, more complicated surgeries, possibly having some animals spayed or neutered at the UC Davis Center where they teach students how to do the procedure. We could still do that, but I think for the day-to-day operations, it would make more sense for Stephanie to be in charge, to make sure that we have the support we need to do the operations. This contract seems to be somewhat one-sided and take us out of control. And to correct me if I'm wrong on that, Stephanie.
No, that's been my concern as well. So I think that is why we've started the conversation about renegotiating the contract to meet the needs of the shelter and the community. We really need to have someone here on the weekends. I mean, yeah, there's so much more that we should be doing. And if UC Davis, again, an idea is that if UC Davis can't staff it themselves, right, we still want to offer the teaching aspect of it for, new and newly graduating shelter medicine veterinarians. However, the needs of the community need to be met as well, so that it still, I think, can have that partnership. And I know the vet school itself they're experiencing the same volume of intakes in their emergency and their other departments, but I think we need to supplement what they can't provide, and just the hours that the shelter is open, so that and sometimes if we want to have a weekend clinic or a later days so people can get here later hours, we still should have someone on vet staff here as well.
It seems like it would be harder to hire someone to just pick up the hours that the university isn't covering than it would be to have a full-time vet. But I don't know what the hiring situation is out there. Do you have a sense of that?
I think it's going to be, I have been reaching out to colleagues and trying to figure out, who would be even willing for this, right? Could we make this work? Most of the veterinarians would like part-time. So that is something that would we necessarily need a veterinarian full-time? I think we could scatter that through, different days, but having a licensed veterinary technician on site is vital for triaging and also controlled substances and vaccinations and things like that, because we are under,
Sure.
we have all those regulations.
So it does seem it would make sense for us to take a close look at reorganizing that whole.
Absolutely.
Okay. I had another question on the mobile unit that I guess needs infrastructure in order to begin operation, in order to plug in, so to speak. Donated about 12,000 in the Rescue Act funds that we have control over for that effort. But I wonder what it would take and whether we're able to get that going in terms of parking it somewhere and putting it in operation.
I am in close contact with Amanda Hartman, so we are working. We actually are still waiting, fingers crossed, on a huge grant that we applied for that would definitely help get this up and running. Another piece of it is going to be staffing it. So that's where, she would need to have the veterinarians, RVT staff. So the staffing part of it, once we can get that, that lined up, then I think, we do have hookup. We have those kind of things available here for a temporary, to get it up and going. But we still would have that same staffing issue with the veterinarians and RVTs. But that's all part of, the grant that we worked on. We're just kind of not dragging our feet on it, but hopeful that we might get that piece to help jumpstart the, what she needs. But we are just waiting and not. She's been finishing also other a few maintenance pieces on it. And so once that is good to go, I think we can start trying to, she is recruiting vet staff and trying to get people's opinions on what they would be, needing salary wise and things like that.
Okay, yeah, I'll be very interested in helping on that, seeing what other pieces need to be provided in order for that to work. Appreciate your efforts in that area.
Thank you, Jim. I'll take a comment from Gerardo, and then we need to open it up for public comment.
Thank you, Supervisor Sandy. Just a comment on the issue of the veterinarians. I would suggest we consider running on a dual track. By that I mean, obviously the ongoing negotiations that Stephanie has mentioned already with the university about the operational hours, et cetera, but also a second track where we could run a bulletin and test the waters to see who we could possibly hire. As somebody mentioned earlier, that's a lot of money to pay to not have an on-site veterinarian. So I think testing the waters with a bulletin to see how many applicants and the quality of applicants that we get while Stephanie continues the negotiations, I think might be a good approach. Just food for thought. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you. Wade?
Yes. Okay. From what I'm hearing, we're not getting full-time veterinary service or full-time AHT technician help. And I'm looking at this agreement and this services agreement, and it says university shall, not maybe, not something like that, shall provide up to 1.25 full-time equivalent veterinarians and up to 3 full-time health technicians. So if we're spending $500,000 here, which it's real close to a year, and we're not getting what we're paying for, then I have a problem with that. Because it certainly sounds like, from everything I'm hearing and from people in my community that spend a lot of time working with the shelter and volunteering at the shelter, that it's rare to see a veterinarian at the shelter these days. So it's I think some of the suggestions from Supervisor Provenza, I would be in agreement. I think we should look into hiring somebody ourselves that we know is going to be there all day, every day, providing these services that obviously we need. So that's just kind of my take on this. I don't like paying for things if we're not getting them. That's the
Appreciate
bottom
that,
line.
Wade. Gotcha. Thank you, sir. I'm going to open it up for public comment on this specific item of the Correct Shelter Medicine Program at this point. Clerk, do we have anyone who'd like to comment?
Yes, Chair, we have Eileen Sametz.
Okay, thank you. Eileen?
Hi, thank you. And yes, I completely agree with the comments made by Jim Provenza and Arado. That was a great idea. I used to work at the vet school for 35 years, so I'm familiar with the way the place operates. And after reading this report, I had complete agreement of the idea, but here's what I think is really important. I think that it is important to keep UCD involved, but I agree. There's no way that this shelter should have ever been operating on a part-time basis for a vet. I mean, it's a 7-day-a-week issue. I mean, whether it's it's up and running on Sundays or not, it's like a hospital, just like any human or animal hospital. Animals get sick, injured every day of the week. So how could it possibly work? How can the county shelter possibly operate with one vet or even 1.25? So the idea of hiring a full-time vet that's on site to do surgeries for like spays and neuters, as well as treatments. Also, the thought of having the RVT's staff paid for and staffing at the shelter, or at least one or two, rather than paying the university their prevailing rate wage for their, I would say do that. But here's the important part. And Wade, I want you to hear this. It's important to keep UCD involved. And let me tell you why. We need them for emergency services. And we should negotiate for a lower price for that, because I can't speak to this for sure, but I think Yolo SPCA gets a lower rate for their emergency services. Let's see if we can negotiate for that. The other thing is for their Gorley teaching facility, surgery facility. Why are they not taking on, and I thought at one time, Stephanie, if you could answer this question, but I thought at one time that the county was having some of their animals spayed and neutered. For instance, the larger dogs cannot easily be done at the shelter because they're bigger, they have a tiny, trailer unit and all that. Give me just another minute, please. So they can't do the large dogs there easily. So those should be, sent over there. But it should be a collaborative thing, because they should be it should be an equal, as Jim said, we've been operating at the behest of UCD, and it needs to be equal. They need to be there when we need them, or ancillary, but not primary, because they're just not coming through for us. So have a full-time vet hired by the shelter, and then have their part-time vet services needed as needed, because one vet cannot be there 7 days a week at the county. And we need their Gorley services. We need to ask for that. We need to elbow our way into that, because we're supposed to be collaborative. We're supposed to be helping their students learn about shelter animal medicine. So it should be a two-way street, and it is not. And we need to renegotiate this contract. And please, I hope, Jim, you're at the table when that's done, because this contract is, we're on the losing end of it. But at the same time, we need to not alienate them. We need to just have them say, wait a minute, this isn't working. You can't do it. We need to get away that's do it. Meanwhile, the animals are suffering, and people like me are getting freaked out because we have all these animals. The shelter can't find homes for these animals anymore because everybody's adopted already from earlier in the pandemic. So, it's an animal cruelty situation at this point. Anyway, thank you for letting me have that extra time. But I totally agree. I think that's the way to move forward and renegotiate the contract when the time comes, but also meanwhile start working on getting a vet and RVTs or HTs. An RVT, you need at least one, that's the licensed one, and HTs are not necessarily licensed, but have that at the shelter primarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agree.
Anyone else?
Yes, Chair. We have Lisa Gaines.
Lisa?
Hi, guys. So I agree with everything that was said. I think that it's also really important to be aware, $450,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's not really that much money when you start looking at veterinary salaries and RVT salaries. We absolutely need an RVT on site all the time, 7 days a week. But I also think that the idea of being collaborative is essential. But it also means having a conversation, or somebody having a conversation that says to the university, how can we work together? Not this is what we want, but based on your research, because we're not just dealing with shelter medicine. There's a lot of other departments that we can collaborate with. And I think it needs to be an open conversation. It needs to be above shelter medicine. They have a new dean who has been very involved in a lot of different aspects of animal welfare, including wildlife. And I think it needs to happen at a higher level. It needs to happen with somebody who's well-informed about the costs, because when we look at those costs, I don't think those costs also include, if it's surgical anesthesia costs and pharmaceutical costs, we're not being billed above and beyond for those things. Is that correct, Stephanie, when we get the bill from them for surgeries and things of that nature?
That's separate because we do all the ordering. So that's a totally separate cost that goes into our budget that we provide.
But
so this is just for their.
If they're doing a surgery, are they giving us a separate bill, or is that under their budgeted costs of $400,000? You get an itemized bill when you take an animal over there.
Oh, sorry. So you're talking about at the school. Sorry, 2 different contracts. I know I'm in Lisa's time, but I wanted to clarify also that we do have a different emergency contract. So I really wanted to clarify for everybody that what we're talking about right now is the shelter medicine contract. So, and we do collaborate with Worley Center, Fracture Program, Neurology Department. So, I mean, I absolutely agree. And I'm glad that everyone is supportive of that part of collaboration with the different departments. But as far as when I get an itemized bill from the emergency department, it is only for animals we've taken in or Good Samaritans have taken in and we've taken over the ownership.
So those costs are above and beyond the costs that we're already paying for budgeted services.
It's a separate part of our budget, yes.
Well, I think that it's really important that we do an ROI, in other words, a cost per animal of animals that are treated. We need to know what the cost is so that we're really looking at real numbers. What's the return on that investment of that $500,000? Exactly what are we getting back? And what's the actual cost? I mean, if it were a product, it would be cost per sale. But when we're looking at the individual treatment of animals, I think there needs to be a better understanding of what that cost is, because it's very easy to go and say, we're spending all this money and we're not getting anything. But being on the medical side, and I run a practice for the university, we have a cost. So it's not, so understanding those costs before we go to the table so that we can intelligently have a conversation and defend ourselves and say, wait a minute, or be considerate of what they're presenting to us and say, okay, we understand. So I don't know if we want to have a task force to put those things together. I'm more than willing to have on it to come back with real costs. What's the cost of hiring RVT? I mean, it's not just the salary, it's benefits and everything else. So I sort of would like to be fully armed as an organization before we start exploring and looking at that contract. And that's really, those are very specific understanding as far as that particular industry. So thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Anyone else?
Yes, Chair, we have Tricia Hilliard.
Hi, Tricia. How are you?
Hi there. Yes, I just wanted to say I'm finally feeling better because you guys recognize what Stephanie and leadership here is going through with the disadvantage that we do have under this current contract. And I'm speaking as the president of Friends of Yolo County Animal Services. We have provided in the last 3 months over $6,000 of care outside of the shelter, things that could have potentially been treated in the shelter. One thing that we do when a dog gets adopted, we have them sign that they're taking on all responsibility for medical care. But nobody seems to understand that, or nobody wants to adopt an animal that they has an ear infection and it had that ear infection when it went home. I'm not blaming anyone. I think basically it is lack of staff. So these are common things that when they call and they're going to return a dog because, you know, they're having problems with some medical bills, Friends does step up in those cases. And we have saved many animals' lives doing that. And it's also helping with our numbers because there are rescues that are also very much tapped with financial issues and donations. So if we're able to get a dog into rescue and it has, let's say it needs eye surgery or it just needs a small growth removed, Friends will step up. So there are a lot of funds that are being spent by our community members to keep these dogs in homes and keep them out of the shelter. So basically, we definitely need more hands on deck here so that we can prevent those things from happening when they go out there, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you, Tricia. Anyone else?
Yes, Chair. Evelyn Dale.
Evelyn?
Okay, I guess you can hear me now. I'm unmuted.
Yes.
I just wanted to really reiterate and support what Lisa Gaines and Eileen Sametz have said about specifically about looking into the cost, the contracts that are being dealt with, and really getting a handle on that so that when you do, and you do need to speak specifically with people at the UCD vet school. And I agree again with Lisa when she says, go up the ladder and talk with somebody near that top or at the top, maybe the dean. But I think it's important to build that relationship between Yolo County Animal Services and Yolo County itself and the university. It's a wonderful resource. We need to have it there. But we need to use it wisely and we need to know what we're getting. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
No additional hands raised, Chair.
Okay, then we'll close out public comment on that matter and ask for final quick comments so we can move on to the next item. Want to have anything succinct they want to say?
Gary,
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just say one thing to make sure you understand from my prior work at the state level in various relationships with the University of California. They're known for having a pretty heavy duty overhead rate. It may very well be that this contract was negotiated in such a way that there isn't a significant overhead rate, but I think it's one of the things as we take a look at this, you should really make sure we understand.
I used to be part of that overhead rate, Dan.
We complained about it too.
Yeah, I know you did. I know you did. Jim?
Yeah, I think it's been a very good discussion, and thanks, John, for putting all this information together, very succinct and understandable. And I think we have some work to do to figure out the best approach. I think we probably have agreement that the current approach isn't working, but what should happen from there, I think we need to do some more work on. And the next agenda item may partially address that. The other thing I wanted to point out is that when we're not billed for all the hours, we're only billed for the hours they actually work, but if the hours aren't worked and the work isn't getting done, that has a cost in and of itself, and that's what I'm interested in addressing. And I think if the vet school is setting its own hours for when they're going to be there, it seems like it might be hard to hire for the other hours. We have to have a system that we can organize and can be predictable. And I don't know what the best model is going forward, but I think we'll figure it out. I think we've got a good start today.
Anyone else? I would say that Jim and I have already decided that we're going to go down and have a conversation with the UCD folks face to face and talk about some of these issues. The other one is to bear in mind, though, that there's just significant cost issues, and we are not a wealthy county. I know people tend to forget that, but cost is going to be a challenging feature of this for us. We have cities that look at us And they want their bills justified as well. So unfortunately, there's no magic budget item for this. We have to do the best we can, but cost will be an issue we have to scrutinize very closely. All right, with that, we will move on to item 8, which is to receive an update on the upcoming county actions reorganizing animal services and approve a temporary pause of animal services planning agency JPA meetings until further notice. John, you're back in the barrel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this item is regarding some immediate actions. The county administrator is going to be requesting support from the Board of Supervisors for on the Tuesday Board of Supervisors meeting, December 6th. We are going to be proposing a reorganization of animal services. And to speak more on this item, we have County Administrator Gerardo Pinedo here, and he's going to explain his vision for this going forward. Gerardo?
Yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate it. So clearly, there's a lot of good work that Stephanie's doing and her team are doing. And in my opinion, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in terms of the system itself and how we can support the animal services, the shelter, as well as all the other services that are involved. I believe that a good interim step while we decide what the options are that we can present to our Board of Supervisors and to all the stakeholders. I think a good interim step would be to have animal services housed temporarily under the county administrator so that we can do a few things. Number one, continue to support the sheriff as the sheriff continues its core mission, which are not animal services, right? The sheriff has other duties. And we would house temporarily animal services under CAO so we could help Stephanie address some of the issues that were discussed already and look at different models to see what the department looks like in the future, whether it's a standalone department or a division under an existing department other than the sheriff, or perhaps a JPA that could take different forms. By temporary, I mean, we would have a goal of, I'm going to be ambitious and say, 6 to 18 months. It's a little difficult for me to say at this moment precisely, but we would move as fast as possible. Let me pause there and see if there are any questions or if anyone wants me to dive into anything specific.
Jim?
Thank you. Yes, I want to emphasize that I think it's significant that we have the CAO offering to do this because it's a real empowerment, would be a real empowerment of animal services and a way to address problems that exist there now. And I know part of the proposal was to suspend the JPA while this reorganization is going on. But I'm wondering, would it make sense to have a check-in every few months or every couple months so that this JPA is able to take off once everything's reorganized? Part of it's internal within Yolo County, but then it relates to everything the JPA is doing. So it seems to me that some kind of check-in might make sense. Would that make sense to you?
Is that a question for me, Supervisor
Yes.
Provenza? Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought it was a question for the group. Yes, it would make perfect sense. We want to be as transparent as humanly possible. We want to share all the information. We want to continue the transparency, and the interim step would be exactly that, interim, but we would want to keep complete sunshine on what we're looking at, why we're looking at things a certain way, how we're developing a proposal and different options that we want to present to our Board of Supervisors and to all the stakeholders. So yes, short answer is yes. If we could do a check-in every few months, I think that would be very helpful. I would just add briefly that it is a very big task to take on. It's going to be a lot of work, but the issue is so important for so many reasons that we really want to roll up our sleeves and see how we can support Stephanie and the whole team and see how we can make some additional progress here. So we're willing to roll up our sleeves and put in the extra hours to get hopefully a good product before the entire group.
No, appreciate that commitment from you, because that's very important for there to be change in any county department. It really takes a movement at the upper end, and the fact that you're willing to do that is really significant. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Other question I had, and just this is more by way of clarification, with the animal services moving out of the sheriff's department, I assume the sheriff would still maintain its traditional law enforcement responsibilities with animals, for example, pursuing animal cruelty cases, where someone's accused of cruelty to an animal, or where they pick up a dangerous animal. That there's some aspects that are a law enforcement, and they would still continue in that role.
That's the goal, Supervisor Provenza, exactly. And I would add that the sheriff has been extremely supportive of exploring this concept and moving in this direction. So I would anticipate that he'll continue to support in all the areas that you just mentioned.
Okay, yeah, that appreciate the sheriff's flexibility on this. I mean, it's probably one of the busiest departments, responsibility for law enforcement, the coroner, and about 10 other things. So it's never particularly made sense for me to make the sheriff also be responsible for animal services. So probably be a win-win for everybody if we can pull this off.
Very optimistic about that. I just will add, when I went out and met Stephanie, I mean, I saw the passion. We all see it, right? We really, really want to support the whole team and get this. We want to move the needle on this issue. And I would add that our city partners have, our city managers, Ken, I know is on, I see his name. He's expressed very valuable points, and he's been a good thought partner with me. And we want to be collaborative with Ken and all our city managers to provide the best service possible, and to open up, keep the books open and share all the information so that the dollars make good sense as to the investment from the cities as well.
So then is the idea to essentially get our county house in order and then rotate back to the JPA for the solution to the new shelter and the other systemic, the larger issues?
Yeah, the objective, Supervisor Provenza, would be for us to develop. There are probably 4 or 5 ways that the shelter, that animal services could be reorganized. We would want to look at other jurisdictions. We would want to adopt best practices from other jurisdictions and make them work for Yolo County, for all the stakeholders. So we would want to borrow and copy the best practices and bring them together and present different options to this body. My goal is to present it, of course, to the Board of Supervisors. Ultimately, that's who I'm accountable to. So I want to present it to the 5 board members. But having the JPA and our other stakeholders involved in the process would be very valuable, because at the end of the day, we want something that works well for everyone.
Well, I for one am supportive of the approach. I know others haven't had a chance to discuss it. Gary and I both discussed it, but I know this is first impression to everybody else.
Thank you, Jim. Myra?
Thank you, Chair Sandy. I'd like to take the opportunity. Gerardo, first of all, thank you so much for working since you arrived here in the county. I've been very happy with you diving in and engaging with our city. I appreciate the work that you and staff have done to communicate with our city manager. I am fully in support of moving in this direction. I think there's some value in keeping the JPA meetings, maybe I would say quarterly, to keep updated so we know what the process is, to get some high level updates. So I would be in support of that to keep the JPA abreast on the milestones or the plans you have. Thank you, Gerardo, again.
Thank you very much.
Other comments? Wade?
Chair
Yeah.
Rich Landsberg, if I be heard, please.
You just stepped all over Wade, but
Oh,
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Go ahead, Rich. I'll follow you.
you
Thank
know
you.
he's retiring. Is that why you're doing that?
More of a question for Gerardo, and thank you for the update on what you plan on doing as a CAO. And I do think it's a great idea to pull that up and take a close look at how you're delivering services, because this does affect the other cities as well as a major cost to my constituents. So I'm asking, you're going to include, I believe, hopefully a comprehensive review of different models of service for animal control, as well as vet services. That obviously there's a need in the county. There's no question that the public is demanding that we deliver a different model for these animals that seem to be out of control at this point. So I'm hoping that, is that one of the things you're going to be doing, is looking at different models of delivery?
Yes, Councilmember Landsberg, exactly. That's one of the major objectives, is to look at the different models and borrow and copy whatever's working well elsewhere and adapt it here. And in doing so, we want to continue to have the spotlight on this and keep complete sunshine. And, you know, in the case of Woodland, as an example, we would continue to work closely with Ken and really be good thought partners continuously going forward as to, let's look at the 4 or 5 models. Let's see which ones work best. Maybe we come up with a hybrid. So we want to be very collaborative with the cities, with all the cities, and hopefully come up with something that will work a lot better. And the services you gave as examples, we're going to be hyper focused on all of those.
Thank you. And the follow-up question to that is, there's no question that the county needs a new shelter. The gentleman who used to work for the county 50 years ago, whatever it was, indicated it was outdated back then. Will your review also include a new shelter?
It'll include all possible aspects of the facility. So it'll include, in the 5 months I've been here, I've heard different proposals that range from adapting the existing structure all the way through a whole different structure on the same property, a whole different structure on a different property. I don't know where we would land. We would certainly look at every single proposal possible. And we would obviously have to keep cost in mind because the return on investment to the cities, to the taxpayers, to the residents, that's always something we're going to keep in mind. But yes, we would look at all the models, and one of the goals is to present options, and hopefully build consensus toward the final product.
Thank you. And I would endorse Mayor Vega's idea of at least quarterly.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Wade, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I'm also in favor, as it sounds like others are, of the hard look, the deep dive that's being proposed. I'm in favor of that, but I'm not in favor of the suspension of the JPA. I think we need to keep this thing moving, and I think we need to keep the public involved with it. So at the very least, I would go along with Myra's idea of at least quarterly. I would say even once every 2 months at the least, if not the still monthly progress reports, because I think we need to keep the hammer down, so to speak. We need to do this quickly. This has been dragging on for a decade that I know of, that I've been involved with this, and it's been the same concerns and issues brought up since before the JPA was even formed. And I feel, as some of the commenters early on mentioned, that nothing's really happened with all this time. And I'm afraid that if we suspend this, then it gets restarted in 6 months or a year or whatever. we're back to square one and we're starting all over again and we still don't have anything done. So I just want to see it keep moving forward and actually see some progress. And I'm afraid that completely suspending this JPA for a period of time would be a step in the wrong direction. Like I say, I'm in favor of the deep dive and the hard luck, but let's keep everybody informed and engaged, especially the private sector, the nonprofits and the groups that help out so much with this, that in my opinion deserve a seat at this table, because they're the key to us getting a new shelter. When it comes right down to it, if we don't have that public-private partnership and the help with obtaining funds and things like that, this is probably never going to happen. So we need to keep them all involved and engaged. And if we quit having meetings entirely, then that's going to be pretty hard to do. So my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. We hear you, Wade. Myra, you still have your hand up. Did you want to make an additional comment? I apologize. Okay, you just wanted to be noticed. Okay.
Sorry about that. No, the technical
That's all right.
difficulties.
That's all
Thank
right.
you.
All right, I'm going to turn to public comment. I am going to hold people tightly to the time limit this time because I need to get people out of this meeting. So do we have any public comment?
Yes, Chair, we do have 2 people that want to make public comment. So the first one is going to be Eileen Sametz.
Eileen, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And first, I want to say that as Wade suggested, I strongly support, and I thank you for the kind words, Wade, because many of us volunteers out here are getting very, frustrated and yeah, to stay engaged is hard. But I think it's very, very important not to push it off to 3 months. And let me tell you why. To keep us informed and keep us engaged and keep us fired up about this, we want to know what's going on. 3 months is way too long. I'm sorry, but every 2 months is even a long time for any of us because we're like hanging by a thread here. So please do not push it out to 3 months. Every 2 months, let's check in and it helps us. You guys are going to need us to kind of be activists, to kind of, get other, people involved and donations and stuff like that. So please don't go beyond the 2 months. And then also Gerardo, God bless you, because you are the answer to our prayers. I'm very optimistic, very excited, very appreciative of your motivation, and you're diving right in to help us with this because, it's just we've been kind of going in circles, not because we haven't been trying to do better, but you're taking the bull by the horns, and that's exactly what was needed here. So thank you so much. And again, if there's anything that we can do in the short term to get this spaying and neutering services, off the ground, because right now we're getting hit with kittens with this trap, neuter, release stuff, and to investigate this whole Gorley Center thing, that should be a perfect opportunity for them to help relieve us in some of the spay neuter stuff, especially they prefer doing like cats. Actually, they're easier than or small dogs than the larger dogs. So anyway, anything you guys can do to help us and keep us engaged on this, please. Let's not wait more than 2 months to re-engage the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Next,
Next speaker is Lisa Gaines.
Lisa, 2 minutes, please.
Hi, guys. I'll keep it short. Thank you. I'm very much in support of the reorganization. I also think it's critical that we don't go any more than 2 months. And I'd also like to offer the idea that we have some sort of a subcommittee or somebody working with the county to provide you with additional information. I think working in synergy with the public, I have always believed that this is a private-public partnership, and there should be at least 25% or more raised by the public to support this project. I don't think that it should be paid for by public funds completely. So I would love to sit down with you and talk about how we can assist you in whatever you need in terms of fact finding or everything else, because I also understand there's numerous other projects that are on your plate that are just as important. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else?
No additional hands raised, Chair.
All right, then we'll close the public comment off. With that, ask for final comment. Dan?
I was just going to ask the CAO what balance he would strike between the same people organizing the meetings are the same people you want doing the work. And it sounds like you have an intensive process. What balance would you strike between two tracks?
Councilmember Carson, we would want to keep everyone as engaged as possible because I feel like as we develop options, if we're heading down the wrong path, it's better to hear sooner rather than later, because you're right, it's a very intensive path, right? It is going to be a lot of work on the team. So we would want to strike a balance between engagement to know if we're developing things appropriately and not wasting everybody's time, right? So like we would want to meet with folks and share when there's something to share. And I think that there will be a lot to share very quickly.
Enough. Jim, quick last comment.
Yeah, I think a check-in meeting with the JPA every couple months makes sense. We've had a challenge getting the monthly meetings because of people's schedules. We haven't made quorums and so forth, but if everybody can commit to being there at the time we agree, and now that's hard now because we have people going off and new people coming on, but once the appointments are made, whenever the different councils make their appointments, we should then set a meeting and kind of a regular meeting time and have it every other month. I think even if it's just a 15-minute check-in, and initially, since you have new members, there's probably going to be some education, and that's a good time to do it because you want everybody to be up to speed. If you've listened to this for 2 years, but there'll be somebody new that hasn't heard it at all. So I could see, in my opinion, every 2 months is fine.
Thanks, Jim. Stephanie?
Wanted to say thank you, not only to the JPA members, but also all of the community members. If everyone wasn't as supportive, it would be really hard with, our jobs are hard enough here. And like you said, I am passionate, but it's really nice to know that there's other people that are just as passionate as moving this forward. So just wanted to thank everyone who has spoken today and showed up today, and also all the work that's being put into this. So it is nice to hear the support, and definitely that'll be something I take back to our team here as well. So just wanted to say how much we appreciate everyone's support, and I look forward to the different options that we have moving forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So Gerardo, those are the marching orders. I think we'll view the intermittent meetings more as a communication device, so that people are kept informed about progress, etc., to make it a little easier to manage. Focus on some low-hanging fruit in the interim with this trailer, this spay trailer, etc. might be an example of that. I don't know. But if we continue to move forward, if you're willing to tackle that, we'll be back shortly after the first of the year.
Thank you, Supervisor Sandy. Very much looking forward to the marching orders and getting going on this. I appreciate your support.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time and your efforts and your comments very much. Good to see you all. Happy holidays.
Bye.